In this week's reflections, we're going to continue to think about and pray for Ukraine. And first of all, I'd like to thank everyone who supported last week's appeal for Ukraine. It was a magnificent response, and we gathered in a great deal of material which was sent off to the refugees in Poland. Last Friday, all the stuff that had come in was boxed up and parceled off and sent off to be dispatched to Poland. And then almost as much stuff came in again before Sunday. And after the Sunday service, we boxed that up and sent that off to Poland. And everything that's been donated is now in Poland. And you can see more about this on the Dunmurry Facebook page. But thank you for everyone who supported this project. We were glad to be able to send something to help people in desperate need. And of course, the situation isn't over. This is, in fact, just the beginning. And every day the situation gets worse. There are now well over 2 million refugees from Ukraine in Poland and in other countries bordering Ukraine. And that's to say nothing of the many millions who are displaced within Ukraine and the many people who are suffering from Russian attacks and bombing raids. It's a very serious situation, a terrible situation, really. And we know this is only the beginning. We've got some way to go before we can come to a conclusion here. And our prayers continue to be with the people of Ukraine. The basic problem is that the Russian Federation under Vladimir Putin will not allow Ukraine to exist. They have no respect for Ukrainian sovereignty, no respect for Ukrainian self-determination, no respect for Ukrainian independence. And that's why they have invaded. That's why they're forcing so many people to flee, forcing people out of the cities they're bombing, and instituting a reign of terror on the country. It's a shocking thing to see in the 21st century in a European country, or indeed anywhere in the world. It's a thoroughly horrible situation. Because in some ways we shouldn't be surprised by it. Under Putin, Russia has invaded Ukraine before. They did so in 2014, and I think something like 15,000 people were killed in the war fighting around the areas in the Donbass region. So there's nothing new in what Putin is doing, except the extent and the sheer terror of what he's launched on Ukraine. And he said, I can read what he said himself just at the very start of this invasion. These are his words. I would like to emphasize again that Ukraine is not just a neighboring country for us. It is an inalienable part of our own history, culture, and spiritual space. Since time immemorial, the people living in the southwest of what has historically been Russian land have called themselves Russians and Orthodox Christians. This was the case before the 17th century, when a portion of this territory rejoined the Russian state, and after. So I will start with the fact that modern Ukraine was entirely created by Russia, or to be more precise, by Bolshevik communist Russia. So Vladimir Putin doesn't see Ukraine as a separate country. He doesn't see this neighboring European country as a free nation which can decide for itself. And yet in 1991, on the 1st of December 1991, a referendum in Ukraine voted with 91% of the population voting in favor, voted for independence from Russia. And that included overwhelming majorities in all the areas where there are a substantial Russian minority. So in 1991, Ukraine became the second largest European country in Europe, with the 5th largest population. And this is what Vladimir Putin and the Russian state is disrespecting so heinously today. It is an awful situation. And we can only watch and pray and hope that there is, in the end, some kind of righteous solution to this situation. I'm going to read a familiar passage from the book of Isaiah, from chapter 2, reading verses 2 to 4, familiar passages. There it says, "And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow into it. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us of his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war any more." Well, as I say, a familiar passage, one that's read very often each year around about remembrance time for us, yet very apposite when we think of what Vladimir Putin and his army are doing in Ukraine. And we have to pray for an end to this violence, an end to this conflict. The West has established some of the heaviest economic sanctions ever imposed on another nation, and that does sound rather lame in the face of an invasion, but these are at least far stiffer than anything that has been done before, and we must hope that in the end this has some effect on the Russian state. And of course, these sanctions, these economic sanctions, will have an effect on us too. They will lead to higher fuel prices, there's no doubt about that. They will lead to higher food prices, and they'll hit not just us but other countries too. And yet this is something that has to be done to attempt to restrict the actions of the Russian state in Ukraine. But we can continue, and we should continue to express our solidarity with the people of Ukraine. We need to encourage our government to welcome refugees from Ukraine here, and we need to pray for a peaceful and just settlement for the people there. So let's join together in prayer. Lord, we pray for all who maintain the national infrastructure and emergency services in Ukraine, for all who shelter from the bombs, the missiles and the bullets, for all who carry arms to shield their communities, for all who flee the perils of violence, for families and loved ones who are separated, the countries who open their hearts and communities to welcome the dispossessed, for the wounded and those who care for them, for those who bring urgent humanitarian aid, for those who are bereaved and those who offer comfort, for all who are weak and vulnerable, for all who have disabilities and special needs, for pregnant women, newborn infants and orphans, for those who face danger in defending their nation, for those who seek to follow paths of diplomacy, for all brave prophets who speak up for justice in the face of transgression. Lord, hear us. Lord, graciously hear us. And there is a world peace prayer which is repeated by people of all faiths around the world, some quite deliberately every day, and it seems a very apposite prayer for this situation. I'd like to finish with this prayer now. Lord, lead me from death to life, from falsehood to truth. Lead me from despair to hope, from fear to trust. Lead me from hate to love, from war to peace. Let peace fill our heart, our world, our universe. Amen.